How do you make decisions about how to spend your time in academia? Do you join that research project? Do you agree to write that book? How do you decide what projects to say yes to and what projects to say no to? That's coming up in this video. Hi everyone, I'm Leigh Hall from teachingacademia.com, and I'm all about giving you the tools you need to navigate academia to make your best impact. If you're new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you get notifications because I put out new videos each week. Today I'm talking with Dr. Evan Ortlieb from St. John's University in New York City. Evan's a professor and he's got a lot to tell us about how he takes the concept of value added and applies it to different opportunities that come his way. And doing this allows him to make decisions about what projects he should be involved with and what projects he should say no to. So how does he do this and how does he benefit his career and help the larger community that he serves? Let's go over and see what he has to say. All right, welcome everybody. Today I'm super excited to have with us Dr. Evan Ortlieb. Hi, Evan.
Hello.
Evan is a professor and coordinator of the literacy program in the Department of Education Specialties at St. John's University in New York City. Thank you so much for joining us today, Evan.
Of course, anytime, Leigh. Looking forward to the chat.
Yeah, I'm really excited about what we're going to be talking about today. So Evan's going to talk to us about the term value added and how we might understand and apply this to our professional lives, particularly around making decisions about what projects we might engage in. So Evan, I'm wondering if you can start off by telling us a little bit about what you mean by the term value added and how you're using it in your professional life.
Sure. So since I have some administrative duties and teaching and research expectations, I often look to other fields and try to read interdisciplinary, if you will. And so in the field of business, the term value added or added value, particularly within economics, means the amount of value added to something beyond its initial stage of production. So for example, let's say as academics that we are progressing on our career path on a linear line, if such a thing exists. You know, what else could we do beyond that linear line to sort of propel our careers forward, to be able to have greater impacts in the field, so on and so forth. So there's really three considerations that I try to think about and contemplate with related to whether I start a project or whether I agree to join somebody else who might invite me to be on one of their projects. And the first, I think, is probably the most important. The first one's all about what legs does it have? And what I mean by that are, can additional projects stem from the initial trunk or the initial project itself? So for example, a number of years ago, I started a book series. It's called Literacy Research, Practice, and Evaluation. And the initial idea was I wanted to do a book on literacy assessment, but I wanted it to have three purposes. Like, why do we choose certain assessments? How do we do that? And then how can we apply those, practical implications to be able to inform our instruction? And so that idea of starting a book series was able to propel my career forward in a number of ways as we are working on volume 10 right now. I guess it started in 2011. So in about 7-8 years, we've been able to have 10 volumes, which is pretty exciting, and be able to bring a number of people, including yourself, onto these projects of areas that are either hot topics or maybe areas that need further attention. And so it's directly kind of connected to my work with Jack Cassidy and the What's Hot and all those sorts of things. So I'm able to make connections in those ways. And that is one such project that really has legs, per se.
So I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, so you really take the time to think about not just what am I going to get out of this project in the moment, in the project in and of itself, but what long-term, where is this headed? How is this going to be beneficial? And what kind of value is it going to bring to me or maybe to a larger community as a whole?
Yeah, absolutely. I think another example is sometimes we are working on presentations for ILA, for LRA, for ALR, for AERA, for whatever it is. And, sometimes those are done on the flight to the place itself, to try to finish the presentation. But a better way to do that is, let's say that we engage in creating a symposium of important people. For example, this summer in Austin, I'm going to be doing one with some digital literacy experts. And from that topic, the hope is to be able to do a follow-up study involving those very same people to be able to contribute to the extant literature, to the research in that area, and so on and so forth. So much like presentations or articles or even research designs or other kind of projects myself, I try not to have too many of those one-offs. And I try to have things, quote, have legs so that they continue to inform the field as well as, impact the community in a number of ways.
Right. So it's not just about how does this add value to me, but it's how does it add value to me, but also how does it add value beyond me? How does it make an impact? And you might get involved with something that might have a lot of, I don't know if saying a lot of value is right, but that might have, might make waves really long term.
Sure.
But you might also get involved with something that might not make a lot of big waves or ripple out as much, but it still might be beneficial, right? So do you think about this not just in terms of getting involved with things that have like sort of a large scale value added, but some kind of value in some capacity, right? And that'll vary, I assume.
Yeah. So, as you said, it can be a widespread impact, or it can be quite narrow in a niche market. So, for example, one of my very first articles was on tutoring students with cancer and going through chemotherapy, and how do we make accommodations given the medical constraints on this community. And I think it was only basically one of 4 articles ever really written on this topic, but it was paramount that I addressed it because I was that person years ago, and I was trying to give back to that same community that helped me.
Right.
So that same idea, the second consideration that I really look at is what is the impact to the larger field? And as we've been saying, it's not just going to boost my career, but also how is it going to impact youth? And I know we always talk about that in our personal and professional discussions about, I know last year you did a piece for me and Joel about, trying to remotivate students and trying to engage them in authentic practices. And I think that idea of, we're in schools all the time, and probably one of the biggest limitations is not enough consideration towards engagement and motivation, and how that's a starting point for curricular planning and instruction. And that's why I loved having that piece within my section of the JAW as a section editor, because we really need more research on that topic. And that's what we mean by impacting youth while advancing the field forward.
Now, how do you decide what would make you say no to something? How do people, I think people can sort of say, oh, I can see when something's a good opportunity. How do you know where to draw the line and say no? Because I'm thinking about assistant professors who come in, they're super excited, they want to be involved, they don't want to be perceived as people who are uninterested or who don't want to be involved in the academic community. How do you know where to draw the line?
Sure. So I would say if you're still a doc student, you would probably sign right up for whatever the project is that comes your way. But as you get a few publications under your belt, as you start to perhaps chart a particular path in your career, even folks like Tim Rosinski weren't always dedicated to fluency, right? And so there's some back and forth between really finding your way, and that can evolve with time, obviously. But how do you say no? I think it probably relates to a number of factors, including, who is on the project? Do you respect their work? Are they some kind of literacy role model to you? Do you envision that their name having significant weight by itself being on that project? Those are some considerations. And further, I guess, it would be, is this going to be a fun project? So for me, there are some of those intangibles, like, when they asked me, for example, going back to edit that section in JAW for 2 years, am I going to get a lot of recognition for doing something like that? It's a service role, if you will. It's bringing other people in to write certain pieces. I don't think I'm going to get a lot of recognition for that. But in many ways, it was fun to be able to cultivate and create your vision for what this section could look like and how that could impact the field. And so sometimes I try to balance taking on projects that will be, fun to do, and those that might have more significance in terms of boosting my career. But to directly answer your question, when do you say no, right? I think that probably is based upon, can you handle it while staying sane, right? That's number one. And how is it going to take away from existing projects that you might be on? So let's say that you're under a contract for a book and you're working on a couple of articles, whatever it might be, and this huge project, is dumped in your lap, and you have to decide, do I want to get in on this? I think you will have to figure out the number of projects that you can pursue at any given time, and still, it's almost like that idea of how many things can you focus on at once. Mm-hmm. And I'm a firm believer that you have 100% focus that is divided by however, that's split between X number of entities, so I can listen to headphones and probably type my paper, but I also can't watch TV and take pictures of people outside all at the same time. So you're limited in that way, and you just have to be cognizant of that and make choices, and then learn from your mistakes along the way too. Sometimes you end up writing with other folks, and it's like fifth grade where you do all the work on a group project. And other times, much like yourself, you find people who are like-minded, who are incredible writers and researchers, and you sort of gravitate towards those people time and time again.
I think it's an excellent point, because throughout my career, I have, not a lot, but occasionally run into situations where I've been on projects where people have agreed to come on board, and I didn't know it, maybe they didn't know it, but when they said yes, they were overextenuating themselves. They couldn't, they were not going to be able to do it. And it creates a huge problem. Right? It creates a huge social problem. It creates a huge professional problem. So even though they might have said this is a great project and it brings lots of value in a number of ways, if you really are overextending yourself and you can't commit, I think, and I'm guessing you would agree, that it'd be better. You're gonna have to say no to something. You're either gonna have to say no to that project, or you're gonna have to set something else aside, because to say yes and not being able to follow through, either meet deadlines, do high quality work, that's not, then you're taking away value from that project, and you're not helping yourself professionally either.
Right. And just like some of your other videos would attest to, because I follow you, obviously, it's better to do high quality work than just try to churn out 10 articles that are pure trash every year. Now, if you can do 10 quality articles, kudos to you. That's great. But quality always wins over quantity.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Evan. Any final words of wisdom? Anything you want to make sure that we particularly remember or pay attention to here?
I think the last point would just be, in order to have that value added, you also need to be able to break into a particular niche area of your interest. So let's say, for example, you're interested in reading motivation and engagement. And, the names that come to mind are like the Linda Gambrells and Barb Marineks and John Guthries and Wakefield and Eccles and all those people. At times you may need to approach those individuals at conferences, give them kudos for their work, see if there's any way that you can help them with their work in order to do that network connections that we know that is needed in the field. But those kinds of approaches early in your career will pay dividends later on and indirectly add value to not only your projects, but your career as a whole.
Yeah, so thank you, Evan. That's a number of ways of actually thinking about the concept of value added and how do we use that as a framework to make our decisions. Well, thank you I can't talk right now. Thank you very much.
Of course, no problem. Anytime, Leigh. Looking forward to seeing your other videos as well.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank you so much for watching. Head on down to the comments and share with us, how do you make decisions about what projects you should be a part of and what projects you should say no to? And what questions do you have about how to make these decisions? Come on down and talk to us, and we look forward to helping you make progress in your academic journey.